Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in the last video we have discussed about how we have discussed about building the file handling logic. Okay, so today we will start with the operations. We will implement the methods for the book service. Okay, so before we get started, please subscribe to the channel here. If you are new, we are having a new playlist, a new series going on, which is Spring Boot React Project 2025. So you can learn a lot about building a full stack application using Spring Boot as a backend and React as a frontend. Also, there are more series on the channel like Angular, MongoDB, Kotlin, and the backend course. You can explore these playlists also. And if you like the content, please subscribe and press the like button and share the video with more such people. So let's get back to our objective of today's video. So first we need to implement all these methods So let's create a implementation class. So we'll say book service impl, and simply we will implement book service. Okay, and then we will just implement it. Now for this we will require a book repository. So let's bring the book repository here. So book repository. Okay, now let's implement the add book method. Now when we are talking about add book method, we are getting the two things. First thing is a DTO object and second thing is a file, right? So the first thing you need to do is that we need to upload this file first. Why we need to upload the file? Because if you go to this book class, we are in the database, we are saving the book cover, which is basically the name of the image name. Okay, the image name and the book cover URL, which is basically the image URL. Okay, so these two things we are saving on the database, and to get these two things we will require first to upload the image. So what we will do is we will save the file here. Now how do we save the file? To save the file, or basically to upload the file, we need the file service. So that also we need to bring it here. So let's bring first that here. Okay, so file service and file service. Okay, so we have bought these two. Now if you go to file service implementation, you will see that there is an upload method. This upload method takes a path and it takes a file. Okay, so basically we have to give the path and the file to it, right? So here we have not defined the path, so we will first define the path. So let's define the path. Now where we have actually defined the path, we have defined the path in application.yml file, this project.images. It has this path images slash. Okay, so we have to get this path. So how do we get this path? We will use the annotation at value, and it comes from this one, org.springframework.beans.factory.annotation.value. Okay, so here we will say dollar in curly braces, we will just write project dot what we have here, project dot images. So project dot images. Okay, and simply we will say private string path. So this path variable will get the value from the application properties. Okay, and oh yes, so this much is fine for now. Now what we are going to do is to upload the file. Now since we are going to upload the file, so first we need to check whether the file exists or not exists, because if the file already exists there, so we cannot override it. We will say to the user that file exists, please upload another file. Okay, so we will say if, now we will use files comes from java.nio.file. so files.exists. Okay, so files.exists. And how do we check? So we have to first give the path to it and the file name to it on which the file is there. So we will say paths, which comes again from the same java.nio.file.get. Now we have to pass URI, which is a file path, the actual file path. So the actual file path we are getting from this variable. So we will say path, and then it will be separated by file.separator, and then finally we also need to pass the file name, okay, to search for the file. So we will say file dot get original file name. So if the file exists, then we will just say throw new file. There is one file exist exception, file already exists exception, yeah. And we can just say file already exists, please give another file. Perfect. So we have to also throw method signature, right? This one. Now what we have to do is, if we don't get any exception, okay, so it means that file don't exist already, so we have to upload the file. So to upload the file, we will just simply call file service dot upload, and we have to pass the path, and we will pass the file. Now what this actually we can simply pass a generalized parent IO exception. Okay, this is a parent class for this also, so we can just pass IO exception, because this method also throws the exception. So if you go to file service, you see that we are returning the file name. So we will get this file name and we will say uploaded file name. Okay, so we have got uploaded file name. Now we need to construct the URL. So how do we construct the URL? So we will construct the URL which is required for, basically it is a book cover URL. Okay, so the name of the file we have already got, file dot get original name. We will get that these two fields we require, okay, basically. So this we are done with. This we have to construct the URL. So how do we construct the URL? Now we need some base URL, okay, the base URL on which our server is running. Okay, so we will just say construct base and we'll say URL. Now for now I'm just giving it like this only, localhost 8080. Okay, you can change it, or you can maybe put it into the environment file. Okay, wait, so let's put it basically base URL equal to, and let's copy this and let's put it into this .env file. Okay, and here what we will do is we will simply use a variable. So I'll say base underscore URL. Here also we need to change to underscore. Okay, so this is how we have passed the URL. So now we will, and we need to fetch that thing also. So we will again do the same value and dollar base dot URL private string base URL. Okay, so we will get the base URL. Now we will say base URL plus slash. Now how do you know on after base URL what endpoint you need to pass here? So for that purpose, in the last video we have constructed this controller, and if you remember, this method was being used for getting the file name on the client side. Okay, so this method was giving us a URL, and using this URL we were able to fetch the file, or we were able to serve the file on the client. So this is the same we will be doing. So let's copy this here, and let's copy this, and slash is, it is file name, so we have to pass the file name. File name will come, so we will pass the uploaded file name. Okay, so this much is done. Now next what we have to do is, now when you are sending the book DTO object from the client side, okay, whether it is a React or anything you are sending, so these two fields you don't need to send, right? This book cover and book cover URL, these two fields will be always be null when the book DTO object comes. So before we convert this book DTO to book object, we have to set the value. So we will say book DTO dot set book cover, and book cover will be uploaded file, whereas book DTO dot set book cover URL, it will be book cover URL you pass. Okay, once this is done, now we will convert our book DTO object to our book. Okay, now for converting the object from book to book DTO and book DTO to book, we need a methods. Okay, so let's define such methods from where we can do these things. Okay, let's define these private methods. There are model mappers or external libraries also which you can use, but here it is very simple to do things, so we will just define our method. It is more easier. Okay, so first we will define book DTO, and we will say convert to book DTO. Okay, and we will get a book object. So how we will do that? We will say book DTO dot builder. We will use the builder pattern, and then we have to define ISBN, book.getISBN, then title, book.getTitle, then author, book.getAuthor, then price, book.getPrice, then description, book.getDescription, category, book.getCategory, then quantity, book.getQuantity, then book cover, so book.getBookCover, and finally book cover URL, which is book.getBookCover URL, and finally we will write build. Okay, so this is as simple as that. Similarly, we will just copy paste this here and just rename the methods. Okay, book detail, and to rename this, okay, so to rename this variable, just right click on it, rename, and just press enter. Okay, so we have easily wrote the two private methods which will help us in converting from the entity to DTO and from DTO to entity. Okay, now we need the book object because we want to save it into the database. So we will say book equal to first convert, so convert to book DTO, right? Now we will use book repository to save the method, to save this book object, and it will give us the saved book. And finally in the return we will say convert to book DTO, and we will pass saved book. Okay, so this is a very simple way of how we can add the book. Now in the same way we have to do for get book and get all books. So we will just simply here do book repository dot find by ID. So we'll say find by ID. We'll pass the ISBN number and we'll say or else throw. Okay, for now we will write a runtime exception, book not found with ISBN this. Okay, perfect. Let's close this. Okay, and it will return you the book object if it finds it. If you get the book object, then simply convert it to book DTO and return it. So this is as simple. So this find by ID basically gives you an optional. Now for getting all books, so book repository dot find all is the method for it. It simply returns you the list. Now if there are books, then there will be a list of book objects, and if there are no books, then you will receive an empty list. So what you have to do here a bit differently, you have to do it like this, books dot stream, and then you have to map. Now for each object of the book, so for each object of the book you have to call the function this. Okay, and then you have to convert it to a list. Now if you see here, if you hover over this yellow line, you will see it says replace lambda with method reference. So you can use the method reference as a shorthand, right? So this is a more easier way to get all the books. So we have defined these three methods for now. Now let's build a controller and let's test it out. So let's build a book controller. Okay, so at rest controller, at request mapping, let's give a base URL API/v1/books. For this we will require book service here, so private final book service. Okay, now let's first define a post mapping. So post mapping is basically for adding the book. So we will define a add book endpoint. We will say public response entity, and it will simply return a book detail and add book. Normally when we do a REST API call, and if we have to pass an object, we directly pass that object as part of a request body. But since here we have to handle the files also, so we have to basically send it as a part of a request part. Okay, basically a multi-part request it is. The request is divided into multiple parts basically. So we'll say request part, and here we have to pass the JSON in the string format. Okay, we will be receiving in the string format. So book DTO JSON. And second thing also maybe request part. Here we can just say like something like whether this file is required or not. Okay, so for now I'm saying false because someone may want to give the book URL, or maybe not. It is if it is not available, the image is not available to provide. So in that case let's make the file as optional. Okay, so we'll say multipart file. Okay, and this will throw exception, IO exception, because the method which we are going to call, it will throw the IO exception. Okay, now before doing anything, first the again the main part is we are getting this JSON in a string format. So we have to convert it into a book object, book DTO object basically. So for that we will have to define a private method again. So we will define a private method which will return us the book DTO object. We'll say get book DTO, and we will say we have the string book DTO JSON. Okay, now let's first create a new object of book DTO. Okay, now to convert the JSON which is in the string format to the JSON which is to a Java object, we need something known as object mapper. So object mapper is provided by Spring only. Basically, it's a Jackson. So okay, which is included in the Spring Boot dependencies, Spring Boot web dependency. Okay, so we create a object of this object mapper, and we will set try catch because it may throw an exception. So let's handle that also. So we will simply say object mapper dot read value has a read value. We will pass that what value we have to read. So we have to read the value of the JSON which is in the string format, and we have to convert this value. And what is the reference for reading this value? So reference to read this value is book DTO class. So book DTO dot class. Okay, and here in the catch we can get a JSON processing exception. So JSON processing exception, and we will simply log it. We can simply log it. Okay, so we will use SL4J. Okay, SL4J.info exception in converting string to JSON. Okay, e dot get message simply, and we will just return book DTO object. Okay, so this is, we have wrote a method to convert a JSON in the string format to a Java object. Now before we call the method which adds the book, we first have to check whether file we have received or not. So first we'll say that whether file is empty. So if file is empty, we will say file equal to null. Okay, and then simply we will first convert using get DTO object. We will pass this stringify JSON which we are receiving from client to convert into actual Java object. Okay, and then we will simply return a response entity dot status. Status will be HTTP status dot created dot body. So body will be just calling book service dot add book. We have to pass book DTO and we have to pass file. Okay, so this is as simple as it. Perfect. So here everything is, we have implemented all the things here. Perfect. Let's write the methods for get methods for getting the books also. So we will say get mapping slash all books, public response entity, a list of book DTO, get all books, and return a response entity dot okay, and call the book service method get all books. Okay, as simple as that. And finally get book by ID. So get book and pass the ISBN. Okay, and response entity, it will give you book DTO and it will have get book, and here we have to pass the path variable. Path variable will be long ISBN, and simply again we will return response entity dot okay, book service dot get book ISBN. Okay, so this is as simple as that. So we have perfectly implemented these three methods, and at least logically we have wrote the logic here and we have defined the controllers for them. So let's first see whether these things work or not. Okay, so let's run our application first and let's see whether our application is working fine or not. Remember that before running the application, start your Docker application first. Okay, otherwise your application may fail to start. Okay, mine has failed to start because what's the problem? Yeah. Okay. Book service I have not annotated. Oh no. My Docker service is started. Don't worry. This service annotation I have not put. My bad. Let me check where here we have, I think, put it. Okay, only on this service we have not put. Okay. So now if you see, our application is starting perfectly. Okay, so it has started successfully. Now let's open our Postman also and let's test it out. So okay, so we have already tested for our files. Now let's create a post request. Let's use the previous URL only. You have to say book slash add book. Okay, so I hope I'm correct here. Let's go to book controller. So API slash v1 slash books, API slash v1 slash books slash add book. Okay, perfect. Now we have to, in the body, you see we have to use request part. Okay, multi-part request. So for that you will choose form data. Okay, in form data what you will do, you will have to pass key, and then here you will get an option whether you have to select text or file. So first key is, the key will be book.dto.json. So exactly copy paste this key as it is. Okay, this key and this variable should be exactly same. Okay, remember that. Here just select text, and here we have to pass in the JSON format we have to pass. So how do we do that? Come to IntelliJ, because we have to write the JSON actually. In the scratches and console, if you see here, so just right click on it, new scratch file, and create a JSON file. Okay, here we will first write all the things. So ISBN, we will construct an object. So suppose I get ISBN as this. Okay, and then all the things we have to construct. So just wait, we will say next is ISBN, then title. So let's consider the brief history of time. Okay, then author Stephen Hawking. Okay, next is description. Okay, description. So in description we will just say book explains about the origin and fate of the universe. Next we have category. So we will pass the category will be as popular science, we can say. Then we will say next is price. So price is say $20. Okay, or price is in double, so let's just make it 20.25. Then next is quantity say 100. Okay, and last is book cover and book URL, which we are not passing. Okay, which we will not pass. No need to pass book cover and book URL. As you can see here also, we have not put any validation on them. And if you say over book detail also, we have not put any validation. It is the same reason, because we don't want to pass it through the values through this, because we are constructing the values for them in the service implementation. Now just copy this JSON and paste it over the value here. So it will go like this. Okay, and here in the next field we have to pass the file. So file name is file only. So we will say file. Here we will get the option of text and file, so we'll select file. Okay, so we will select the file. So I have this brief history of time, so let's select this file. So if we select these files, now we have a JSON data in the string format, because as you can see it accepts a text. So text is a kind of a string. We are sending a file. So when we send these two things on this endpoint, what will happen is we will have a file upload here. So in the last video, since we have already created the folder images here, and we have uploaded one file to test whether our upload file is working or not. So it was working perfectly. You will now see the book cover URL here, and in the database also you will see the same. So let's do it. So if we send it and we get an error, okay, fine. Let's see what the error is. Maybe something has gone wrong. Book identifier of entity must be manually assigned before calling persist. Okay, so actually we were getting the error, as you can see here. So the error messages identifier of entity, this must be manually assigned before calling persist. So what it means that somehow the book object that we are saving here in the book service, if you see, the ID was getting null. So if you see here, you can see ISBN was getting null here. Okay, I tried to log out and check out. So we are doing very silly mistake. Here we were calling the method, but we were not assigning the values. Okay, so because of that, so we have to actually assign the values. I forgot to assign the value here. Now if you assign the value here, book detail will get the actual object, and then we have to pass the book detail. Otherwise previously it was passing the empty object. Okay, so now if you run this server, and our file upload was working actually. So that is at least confirmed. So now if you run the server, you will see that it will be working up. Okay, so the server is running. Let's clear it all. How to clear it? Fine, no problem. So the same we have wrote here, all the data here in the text format, and we have uploaded the file here. The endpoint is here. So now let's add the book. So if we add the book now, you see here we are getting all the things. Okay, and the title, the author, everything. And if you see here, we are getting the book cover URL also. Now if you copy this URL, go to the Google and paste here. Okay, how it not pasted? Let's copy the URL, paste here. As you can see, we are getting the file. Okay, and this is what exactly we want, because on when we will be developing the React part of this project, so there we will need the image. So how do we fetch the image? We will require this URL. So that's why it's important. Okay, now time to do some more changes. So let's test it out with the get book. So let's copy this ISBN and let's change it to getbook slash ISBN, and if we send this, okay, we are getting it perfectly. And if we say all books, then we are getting in a list format. So our code is working perfectly fine. Now we are remaining with the last two methods, which we will cover in the next video. So for this, you just go through the video, you just go through the code. If anything you have not understood the reason behind it or the logic part of it, definitely post a question in the comment. I will try to answer your queries. Okay, so I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.